All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us tonight for our freshman sophomore post-secondary planning presentation. I'm Kevin Brenningham, Director of School Counseling. Obviously, you heard from Candy Calderon, who will be interpreting for our Spanish-speaking parents. And then we also have Claribel Guerrero, who
Claribel, Miss Guerrero, Claribel Guerrero. And I'm the intern here at Edison Trail, so I can also hopefully be of any help to you guys tonight as well. Thank you.
Mr. Cole usually presents tonight. But unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He's actually in Rockford with the girls bowling team. They're down for state, so kudos to them. So I have a few slides for you tonight. Certainly, if you have questions, go ahead and put it in the chat. We can talk about it at the end. And any other comments you have, please let us know. So we're going to talk about kind of three different areas tonight: the four-year college track, looking at College DuPage, our local junior college, and then looking at options from school to work. Okay,
Awesome.
so kind of start talking about some thoughts from Mr. Cole in terms of for college, and kind of the first question that he asks is where do you see yourself, the student and the parent, in the fall of 2027 or the fall of 2028, when the students graduated from high school. And the first thought is kind of looking at college is not just about that 4 years, right? Getting that degree, moving on. It's positioning yourself for the next 40. What are you doing to prepare yourself for your life after college and going into a career? And we talk a lot about that with the students all the time. And we understand that, things may change. They might have an idea of what they want to do now. Certainly can change. We can probably all talk about that from our own experiences. From when we even graduated from college, we're probably not doing what we did. We're not doing now what we did when we graduated and maybe in our first job or, where we graduated from high school. So we know that changes, but are you preparing yourself in many ways as possible and figuring out what does it look like, and understanding it, that's hard to predict, but positioning yourself and putting yourself in the best position for your next 40 years. The big thing we talk about, growth, coming from being uncomfortable, and there's going to be times we know that students are going to struggle, right? We've talked a number of years of being a counselor. We've talked about the process, particularly for finding a college. It's tough. There's a lot of information out there, and a lot of things you have to sift through and find out about colleges. And the big thing is, going through some uncomfortableness. There's going to be times when they struggle, and that's okay, and that's going to prepare them for life. Talk about greatness begins when your comfort zone ends. So getting out of that comfort zone, and that's different, obviously, for all students. For every student, looks different. It might be, going away to school, maybe a couple hours away. Maybe it's uh, going to a school in a few states away. So that's going to look different for every student, but getting out of that comfort zone, preparing, for life and those next 40 years. And I think I have a few nieces and nephews in college, and two of which that are going to schools pretty far away. One's at the University of Alabama, and the other one is at Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi. It's pretty far away. And I remember, having conversations with my brother-in-law about that, and he felt the need for them to kind of branch out um, and get away, maybe farther away, experience life in a different part of the United States. And again, does that work for everybody? Not necessarily, and we're going to talk about, finding that fit and how do you find that fit for college. and for some students, maybe they're not ready to go far away, and unsure of what they want to do, and what's that option, and maybe um, just based off of financial need that maybe it's staying closer to home where you can live at home. But looking at all your different options is definitely helpful. And starting this process, that's why we have nights like this. We want to have families think about these things now, start preparing now. We're going to talk about different activities you can get involved in to help that, because it is an overwhelming process. We understand that. And we want to help you as much as we can. The big thing we always talk about students, is what you're going to do, a career or a job. Career is something you enjoy. As Mr. Cobley put in here, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's something that we go back to, that positioning yourself for the next 40 years. So when you're choosing a school, we talked a lot about this with families, being a wise consumer. Okay, make sure your student knows what you can afford. Obviously, we know the rising costs. I feel like I've been saying this for a number of years, but the costs keep on going up, and it's getting extremely expensive for schools. Mr. Cole was telling me a story about a student. They got into a school out east. Um, you know, Pretty prestigious school, but it's going to be $80,000 a year. Okay. And thinking about a major in psychology. And he brought up to the student, like, well, what are you going to do with that? You're probably going to have to go get a master's. So that's more money, you know. So obviously, if money's not an object, not an issue, but in many cases, it's going to be. So what can you afford? Having that conversation. Will you get the return on your investment? Again, I just brought up, spending $80,000, maybe going and getting a psychology degree. And if you're not planning on going on and getting a master's, but if you are, that's more debt. So, are you and your child, you know, getting that return on investment in terms of that school? And that's a big thing, and it's going to look different. Again, something different for everybody. Big thing. It's not the name necessarily. It's about the right fit. And Mr. Cole talks about this all the time. The equal, you have a stool. The four prongs of the stool, equal footing. So looking at the financial fit, as we talked about, the academic fit. Okay, uh, career fit. Do they have your major? That's something you want to go into, and then the social fit. Are you looking for a larger school where there's larger class size, or are you looking for something smaller um, where a lot more people? Pretty much everybody that goes to school. Your professors, TAs, teacher assistants, all those, them pretty well. So looking at all those different factors. Many years I've heard at a conference, it's about, finding a college is all about finding, buying a new pair of shoes. Is it the right fit? It's got to be the right fit. And again, going back to those four areas we talk about, and kind of go back to academic fit, you know, is it something that you feel comfortable, your child will feel comfortable going there, in terms of the rigor. That's important. So having that equal footing on the stool is super important to look at when you're looking at those colleges. So colleges and should know you're interested. So I think one of the big steps, the first steps, is getting on campuses, doing scheduled tours. I've always talked, it's nice if you're going away somewhere during spring break, you have some time, you're driving, somewhere on spring break, and you can stop by a school and just pop in. I think it's also important though to do some scheduled tours as well. I know that's hard, particularly during the school year, but that can be super helpful to get an idea, get some information from their admissions department, get your name in their system, we've always talked a little bit about trying to get on campus when the students are around because you get a better feel of how the campus works. But definitely, if you can, at this time with freshmen and sophomores, just getting on campus is a good start. Getting a feel from a different perspective, whether it's a small public school, small private, or larger public schools, larger private schools. We're very fortunate. We have a lot of smaller, uh, mostly private schools around us, from Elmhurst to North Central, um, you know, uh, North Park in the city, and then to some larger ones to UIC, northern into Cal, which is a 45-minute drive. So we're fortunate you can look at those. And then if you go out of state and you're thinking out of state, again, going on vacation, even if it's this summer, stopping by a local college, taking an hour just to walk by, get an idea for that. But definitely those tours is a great start. College fairs. We will be having a college fair coming up March 11th um, in our field house. I think we usually typically have about 60 to 70 schools. It's a great way to talk to a missions rep, talk about what they're looking for. We use a program um, called Stripe Scan, and so you sign up. It's an app, and they take in your information. They have your information. You end up, you know, getting a lot of mail from those places too, giving giving you information about their school. But again, I would highly suggest no matter what year, there's freshmen, sophomore, juniors that attend that college fair. We have that fair every year. So, it doesn't hurt to start early and get an idea of what colleges are looking at. You can also go to the IACAC website because there's other fairs that go on locally. I know in the spring, Hinsdale Central in Hinsdale has a larger fair. It's pretty big, over 100 schools. They do have kind of more of those prestigious schools that do come to those. And then in the fall, there's always the NACAC, the college fair, which is usually at they've had it a few places. They've had it at Navy Pier, but they've had it elsewhere as well, and that's a large 200, 300, along with the College of DuPage has one in the fall, which is a little bit smaller than the NACAC one. But again, those are fairs to easily check out and get an idea. We host college reps in the fall and the spring. So we kind of take a break probably around mid to late November, and then they'll pick back up next month. March and April will have visits. So really the fall is a lot more for seniors, although we do allow juniors to come to those. And then we'll see in the spring more juniors come to those. And those are during the day. Students we send out a message on remind to let them know when that's coming, and they just have to come. Usually they're in form room B, sign up. We do say, keep an eye on making sure they're not taking advantage of this just to get out of class, that they're there to learn about schools. But that's another opportunity. The summer scholars or pre-college programs, I would say definitely if you're thinking of a more competitive school, this could be super helpful to get kind of, I want to necessarily foot in the door, but get your name in their system. Learn more about, obviously the school, but learn about some of these programs. Many of them have those programs, and again, you can't do multiple of them, obviously, but if there's a school that your child's really looking at, that's really interested in, you think it might be a good fit, it may not be a bad thing. Again, more of the prestigious schools, these that's where they can be more helpful. Like for instance, like Northwestern University, anytime that you call them or you visit them, they keep track of that information. And that's a big thing to them that shows that your interest, and it could come into play, particularly when you apply. But you can search now if you do go on, if there's a school you're looking at interested. All of the schools do have these programs. They're a little pricey. It's not like a tuition, but it can be a little pricey. But again, the experience, pays for the experience that they get involved in. Obviously you get to see school, but they get involved with some academic, components to them. Um, One thing that's not on here that, and I really want to emphasize it, is the use of school links. We work with students throughout the year with school links. Obviously, we're wrapping up our course selection, and we work with students to select their courses through schoolings. But we started back in the fall with the freshmen and sophomores, where we did presentations, had them get on schoolings, do some interest inventories, and we want to start this process of them having to think about what they want to do, what their process is. And we'll be back in the spring as well to do some more activities. But you can certainly, you have a login. If you need help kind of with that, you can certainly call our office. We can help you get that set up. It's really already set up for you, um, but also your child should know how to get on, so you can use that with them. And we encourage them to use that outside of us, whether it's during their ATR. But there's a lot of great activities, a lot of great information and tools that they can use, particularly like a college search on there, narrowing down that search, no, kind of looking at the different variables, as we kind of mentioned, going back to that stool, of the four different areas, um, you know, what are you looking at for school? And we know, sometimes that's hard to know, but if you start researching and looking at the different variables and understanding, maybe what your interests are, again, that's where we start with the interest inventory that can be more helpful.
Oh, Kevin, I'm sorry to interrupt. We did have a question regarding some school tours. So they asked, do these tours need to be scheduled with the school?
So the if you are meeting with an admissions rep, yes, you would want to schedule a tour. If you're thinking of just stopping in on the campus, absolutely. You can just stop by. You don't have to schedule it. You're just driving through, want to see it. But if you're setting up a date or a date where you want to go see schools, I would definitely call ahead. Particularly in the fall, they do, book up. Like many of the big dates that they book up on are like, Columbus Day, because that's a big day because we're obviously not in school and they usually are. But I would suggest, if you're looking to speak with admissions or get an admissions tour, I would definitely make an appointment. And you can go on their websites and set that up pretty easily. So let's talk about like what else matters in terms of, particularly, college. You know, we've talked again with the students right from the beginning of the year about preparing for course selection and how that's going to help in the long run. And then it came to this time where we met with them again, to have them select their courses and making decisions in terms of their courses, to help them in the long run. So that might mean taking a dual credit course. So our dual credit courses mean they get high school credit and then they get college credit. And we've increased those opportunities dramatically over the last 3 to 4 years. Um, I have to hand it to our administration, Dr. Barbarente, has really pushed this, and our departments, our academic departments, have really gone out and worked with local universities, particularly Elmhurst College, and then the College of DuPage. Um, has come up and given, really allowed us to do a lot more dual credit courses than we have ever, and has been a struggle in the past, working particularly with COD. But we made great strides in terms of the classes. And again, this helps in a couple different ways. It moves them along academically, but also in financially, where you may not have to pay as much in college, and they're moving kind of their academic timing along, because they don't have to take as many classes. Advanced placement courses obviously have been around for a long time, certainly can be helpful. Um, the difference between the AP and the dual credit AP. To get that credit, still you need to take the AP test in May. And some schools uh, want a certain score. They may want a 5.4, um, at least a 3 in many cases, to get that credit. Illinois does have a law that if you do get a 3 on an AP test, the colleges do have to give you credit, but they don't necessarily have to give you credit in the class you took. So there's a little bit of caveat with that. Um, but then, it can still be beneficial. Obviously, when you're taking an AP class, you're taking a college level course. It's preparing you um, for what to come in college. But even in some of our dual credit courses for students maybe that aren't thinking going to college, it can be super helpful. We have a number of classes that are just certifications. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of our kind of work-based learning programs that students can get involved in as well. Obviously, grades and GPA count. That's a big factor. Um, when colleges are looking at, we send them the transcript. They're after their sixth semester, so after their junior year, that transcript's going to go along with their application. In many schools, what they're doing is they're pulling out just the core classes, looking at what their grades in the core classes. They have formulas now that can pull that out. But obviously GPA is going to be a big, big thing with that and grades. And then, going back to that course selection, are you challenging yourself in your courses? Standardized tests, if I was doing this presentation about 3 or 4 years ago after the pandemic, I would say that test scores aren't as important. They're using the test optional, but it is coming back to the fact that test scores are more important. There is another state law that all the public colleges within the state of Illinois have to have a test optional, but how they use that is kind of up to them. So what we're hearing more and more that more colleges are requiring the testing. So as a state, as you may know, we went from SAT. We were an SAT state school, meaning all the public high schools have to take it for a graduation requirement. I think it's been 4 years, 4 or 5 years. Now we're back to ACT this year for the first time. So students took the pre-ACT in the fall, and this upcoming spring, the freshmen will take a pre-ACT 8-9, and then the sophomores will take another pre-ACT, a different one that they did in the past. But it's really becoming more and more important back, to where it was prior to the pandemic, the importance of the standardized test and admissions. And I'm going to have a next slide talk a little bit about where you can, practice and getting better with the ACT. So the other thing to think about is with that GPA class rank and standardized test scores, it provides the best chance to save that money, getting the best deal, okay? Merit money when it comes to getting to a college. So obviously, the better you can do in school, the harder you work, and those grades can pay off in the long run. All right, so how are we improving? What are we using in terms of prep for the ACT? And in the students' Chromebook on their Google Drive, um, students can access some ACT prep, and if they just pull up kind of their waffle, so to speak, their menu, there's a thing called EBSCO, and it's part of our media center. It's a Learning Express library. If you click on that, that'll bring up some really good ACT prep in all the different areas. So the ACT consists of English reading, science reading, and math. Okay, there's 4 sections of that. So you can practice in each section on that. So that's a great starting point. Even now, to help you prepare, the more you can prepare for that. As they get closer to your junior year, we'll offer some ACT prep classes, usually after school. For that is, for them students to sign up. And, as I mentioned this many, many years, you know, sometimes taking these standardized tests is not what you know, it's how you know the test and learning that test, and learning the test strategies to help you get better on that test. So some of these things, these resources can be really helpful to help you prepare for that ACT. All right, so now I'm going to kind of transition, talk a little bit about, all right, how do we pay for this, right? That's the big thing out there. We talked about how expensive it is. You know, Obviously we got to start saving now, all right? If you haven't done already, do as much as you can. You could try start a 529 plan for your child. That could be super helpful uh, to save as much as you can in these next 2 to 3 years, 3.5, 2.5 to 3 years before they start college. As I mentioned, the merit money, you know, receiving money based off their academic standing, their grades, their testing, and it all depends on the school. So maybe they're one of the top students in in their class, and they go to a smaller school. They may give them a better deal. Okay, and that's something you have to think about in terms of the school. Like if you're one of the top students and you plan on going to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, more than likely you're not going to be getting merit money in it being a public school. Private schools, you might get a better deal. And that's one thing to think about when you're looking at these. You know, the public schools, the public colleges within Illinois aren't the most, very cheap. As you look around some of the other states, for instance, University of Wisconsin-Madison, awesome, excellent school. If you live in Wisconsin, okay, and you graduate from a Wisconsin high school, okay, the in-state tuition there is about 27,000, as opposed to if you are from Illinois, um, it's about $60,000 to go there. So it's amazing the difference in in-state tuition for Wisconsin as opposed to Illinois. And they have, unfortunately, don't have reciprocity with Illinois. They have it with Minnesota. So if you go live in Minnesota, you can get in-state tuition with University of Wisconsin, but unfortunately, don't have that with Illinois. But looking at some of those private schools, um, you could get more for your money. And we always talk about the sticker price. You go and buy a car, you see the sticker price. That's not necessarily what you're going to pay when you look. You may look on the website, for instance, DePaul University, go on and they'll tell you what the um, the tuition is, but that's probably not what you're going to pay in the long run. So don't just look at that sticker price when you're looking at these schools, particularly those private schools. Um, if you are eligible, you may be eligible for a Pell Grant or MAP grant. In order to be eligible for that, you do have to fill out the FAFSA form your senior year. There's a certain level you need to meet for that. There are federal student loans that students can take out for their freshman year. It's up to $5,500, and then sophomore year, $6,500. Okay, and there's a little bit more they can do. So there's a subsidized and unsubsidized, and so the biggest difference, understanding that subsidized is the interest that's occurred while you're in school is paid by the government. Unsubsidized is you you don't you start accruing that interest right away. So that's kind of another idea to think about in terms of those federal student loans. The federal Parent Plus loan, that is covered up usually up until like what has to be covered in the cost of attendance for a school. So when you see an award letter from once you complete the FAFSA, and the schools you applied to and the schools you were accepted to, you'll get an award letter, and then they'll show you um, what they can cover, whether it's potentially merit money, um, maybe if you're eligible for Pell or MAP grants, student loans, and then the rest would be covered by the parent plus loans. There's opportunities you can look at private loans, and then the other one is a home equity line of credit. I know Mr. Cole's a little bit more well versed in this. You can take that out. And again, obviously playing with looking at the interest rates on these and what's the best fit for you in terms of that. So those are your kind of options in terms of trying to pay for that. And obviously those discussions, it's really don't happen till this time senior year and maybe even later. As this year, the FAFSA wasn't available. I think it was right before December 1st. So I don't believe students have gotten their award letters. And then you have to make a decision by May 1st for most of these places. So it is a little bit hectic. What I'm hoping happens, and the plan was when they the FAFSA was kind of redesigned, so to speak, last year, and there's been some delays in getting it out. It's less questions, but it used to be for many, many years, it was January 1st. And then about, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, they moved it to October 1st. And I believe the plan next year is to go to that October 1st plan. So you can get those award letters a lot earlier from the colleges and kind of have an idea of your financing for schools. All right, so I'm going to transition now, talk a little bit about 2-year schools and College DuPage. We're super fortunate to have a great junior college, 15, 20 minutes from Addison. If you have not ever been over there, or if you haven't been there in a while, I suggest just checking it out because they've really done a nice job of renovating the place, and they continue to renovate it. And I believe actually right now they're renovating their kind of instructional center where most of all the classes are. Um, uh, the big center they call it. They're still kind of going through that, but they've done a great job over there. And uh, this might be a student. We talk about students, you know, who are a good fit for COD. The first thing is obviously, the cost is a lot lower. Okay, tuition there is a lot less than even some of your state Illinois state colleges, and potentially too that students don't know what they want to do, so they want to start off and they don't want to spend a lot of money, and then if they're planning to transfer to a 4-year school, it's a great option. But they also have a lot of certification programs for students that they can go for 9 months. Maybe it's a year and a half. And they're getting a certification and they're going on to work right away. And it could be a great opportunity for those students. The big question we always ask is how do you deal with transition, right? So it's not your traditional school. Students don't live on campus there. You're there for a few hours. There's not the community feeling necessarily that you would get at a 4-year school. Um, you know, would they feel comfortable there? Um, you know, is a transition knowing that I'm only going to be there for 2 years and then potentially transfer to another school. Is that something that they'd be comfortable with? So that's something to think about. The other thing that we talk about is, knowing and have an idea of where you want to transfer, because being up on that, and I will say that their admissions department and their advisors are really super helpful with this, helping with the transfer. But Mr. Cole and I were having a conversation about this today, in terms of transferring to ISU and their nursing, so nursing is super competitive out there. We need more people in nursing, but there's just not uh, as many spots available. There's not as many people teaching it, so there's not as it's hard to get into some of your programs. So if you're thinking of transferring to ISU and they're nursing, it's really difficult to transfer there and get into their programs. They take very few people. So having an idea with that, and it's hard, right? Not knowing you're going to a school, you don't know what you really want to do, and then you're finding out, well, I decide transfer here. Oh, wait, it's really hard to transfer. Um, so again, going back to kind of that idea, of having your options, available to you. What are the other options that you could do if you go to COD and, there's a program that it's hard to get into, to have that idea. You know, there are many programs that you try to transfer to, and to this point, there's a lot of programs that are competitive, and it's automatic admit your freshman year. I will say one of their biggest strengths that they put in place is the 3+1 programs. Um, and again, can be potentially a great cost savings to use their 3+1 programs. And what it is they work with a number of different four-year colleges locally, Benedictine, Lewis University. I think there's a couple others out there they work with, and it's in particular majors. I think nursing is one of them. And so you spend 3 years at COD. Um, your your first 2 years are COD courses. That third year is that university courses, but you're taking them on campus at COD. And that fourth year, you're transferring to that local school, and that's pricing at the third year is still at COD pricing. So it can be a great opportunity. Again, it is competitive, some of these programs, particularly in nursing, but it's a great opportunity to, transition easily into a new school, get through in 4 years. They really help you stay on track. And then the cost of it. I would suggest going on to the COD website. There's a lot of great information. It's super organized when you go on that website to find these different programs. They'll ask you what you're looking for. You're looking for a certification program. Are you looking for a particular major, 3+1 program? So definitely that's another great tool to use. Go on their website, find more about them. If you have a time to do a visit there to get an idea of what it's like, particularly, if you haven't been there or haven't been there in a number of years. So kind of our third kind of topic is looking at from school to work. And I really don't like the word work. We want to talk about career, because all these areas we want students to have a career. Okay. Um, and not just a job. And we talk to students like, well, I have a job now. Yeah, that's great. But is there longevity? Is there upward movement in that job that you have? And that's a big thing that we talk about students. If they're not going to college, okay, what opportunities can they get involved in from their courses, or particularly maybe extracurricular activities that can help them. One area is going into the military for students. We do have our branches come once a month during our lunch periods to talk to students. If you weren't aware, we started a JROTC program this semester. I think we have about 30 students involved in that. That's a great way to get an idea of the military. Even if students aren't interested in the military, it's not a bad course because they learn leadership, discipline. Uh, there's some, great way to get involved in kind of another activity. But that could be an opportunity for students. Obviously, you know, it could become a career, but also, you not sure what you want to do, go into the military, and then potentially get some funding for a 4-year school after that. The trades, has been, you know, looking for our students. I know many students they're dying for um, workers in the trades and all the different trades. Um, I know we offered a number of different field trips this year to the different trades to learn about them. We worked with a company called Project Startup for our seniors this year, and we'll continue to do that um, to help train for the trade testing that you need to take, particularly that math component. So we're helping prepare students, get them those opportunities. But there's plenty of opportunities to have in the trades. Um, I know like Cisco's one locally. That again, there's another about opportunities to have with kind of the workforce retiring and then needed workers in that area. Another area is Project Higher Ed, and this is kind of connected to College of DuPage. And so Project Higher Ed is actually kind of started in Addison with some of our manufacturing companies. And what happens is students get hired at a company, and that company pays them to work, but also pays for their schooling, and they go through some training through COD um, to help them. They kind of sign a contract, a 2-year contract that they'll pay for their schooling, and then they can either continue to work with that company or potentially, after that contract's up, find another job. And, again, they're getting that training and able to make more money as they move through that training. So they get paid to go to class, they get paid to work. So again, another opportunity for students that maybe aren't looking for that traditional path of a 2-year, 4-year school, and it gets them on a path upward. The last one is symbol training. So we have a partnership with a manufacturing, a CNC machining school right here in Addison. And we just went through our second group of students that kind of got a certification at the first level. And they're working with computers, understanding the computers to create different products out of metal. And again, that's another area, the manufacturing area is in need. And we talked to particularly our students that can speak 2 languages. Um, they can move up very quickly in those areas because there's the need for that to work with employers um, and help in those areas. And again, another great opportunity for students, if they're not going the traditional route of the 2-year, 4-year school, um, to get kind of head start. If they do symbol, they can do symbol their senior year. It's a semester long class. They go 2 to 3 days a week, and they're getting that training with them. Again, 5-minute ride in a bus. Um, you know, the other one I want to bring up is Technology Center DuPage, and then I apologize, that's going to be coming up in another slide as we kind of transition to kind of the career pathways, but I'll hold off for that. But again, Symbol's a great opportunity for students looking for going from school to work, and then if they go once they finish with us and they finish at level 1, they get 2 more levels at Symbol. They can start working probably about $65,000 a year. Can be about 19 years old making that, so it's not a bad deal. So, Miss Navarre is our student career development coordinator. Couldn't be with us tonight, so she had a few slides, and we've talked a little bit about this with course selection, but we do have some pathways that students can take, again, that helps them in what they may want to do later on, and then may help them move their path a little bit quicker. We have very fortunate. We just had a culinary expansion put on this fall. It looks awesome. If you haven't been to the building recently, I highly suggest, if you're in the building and can take a sneak peek of it, it looks great. But we have 4 levels of culinary for students. The 3 and 4 levels are double block year-long classes where they get that opportunity to work in there. Along with this culinary expansion, they're putting on like a Blazer Cafe. So students will be able to kind of work in a cafe, and we're going to have a like an app order where students and staff can order drinks. So the opportunity to kind of learn and all those other components of the restaurant business and the billing and the servicing industry as well. They get that opportunity. Also, autos. We have levels all the way up 1 through 6. Um, our certification, our Key Santini, our teachers, gets a certification, and students walk out with some great skills, and able to potentially get hired right outside of Addison Trail, depending on where they're at. I just mentioned Technology Center DuPage, another great opportunity to get dual credit, to get certification. They have, I think, I think 14, 15 different programs. Students are bused there for three or so periods, either in the morning or afternoon. And it's a lot of hands-on learning. So students can be a part of the cosmetology program that if they're there for 2 years, there are some summer hours that they have to do. They can be fully certified as a cosmetologist once they are done after that second year. Um, Some of the other programs include fire science, criminal justice is a popular program. HVAC is also popular as well with our students. So a great opportunity for juniors and seniors for that. Lead the Way course, I know these are another popular set of courses that students, particularly in the medical field, have opportunity to take. I know uh, students could choose to take principles of biomedical science their freshman year as opposed to maybe bio or bio honors. They can also still take that as an elective science course, maybe, their junior year. We also, a lot of these are courses that they learn through problem solving medical situations. And then it leads to them being able to take medical careers course, which is a 1 semester, 2 period course where students are shadowing somebody at Glen Oaks Hospital, and they do a rotation with different departments within that. Again, if a student is thinking of going in the medical field, this is a great opportunity to learn right right from those people that are working in it, and definitely finding out if that's something they want to do. We've had many students take that and say, I don't want to do this, and there's been plenty that also said, yes, this is exactly what I want to do, and I want to work in this department. So another great hands-on learning experience. Um, our horticulture courses starts with ornamental horticulture, and then they can do uh, the greenhouse their second year. Our teacher in that does an awesome job with that program. Um, another great career pathway, our woods program, where students are creating projects from end tables to Aaron deck chairs, and then obviously they expand as they move up into those areas. Along with those building trades, again, building trades classes help them prepare. They start off like learning little projects to do around the house to larger projects. We also are starting a new course, Math in Construction, this year, this upcoming year, excuse me. It's a 2 period class. It'll be a math teacher with our INT, and they'll be working on building. They're going to start building sheds outside, and then learning math through that as well. And then our early childhood teaching program, we have all the way from the preschool, 3 levels there where they're working with. We have a small preschool that comes in for a few hours a day. And then we also have some education teacher prep classes where they are shadowing at different schools around the area. We also are starting a couple dual credit courses with Elmhurst. They have a grant that we just started where they're getting ahead of some of the education courses that they may need in college. So again, some great career pathways. The last one is youth apprenticeship, and I really compare this to I talked about the Project Higher Ed. Um, program. This is kind of getting a head start with that. Right now, we work kind of with the our original Office of Education for placement. Students can work in the INT area and computers. Many of our students end up, and we have like 3 or 4 spots here at Addison Trail where they work with our our INT um, IT areas, the computers, technicals areas for a couple periods a day. There's also manufacturing where they're working with companies outside of us, having a job. Maybe it's at the end of the day, they're working during the day, they're getting paid for it as well. So again, some great opportunities for students, whether they're thinking 2 4 year school or going into the workforce. There is a QR code here. I suggest you kind of scan that. It's going to give you a lot more information about our career pathways, our career clusters, and what we're trying to do to help prepare students to make that decision and thought help them make a decision in terms of their next path and what they want to do and what career that they want to go into. Uh, Again, Miss Navarez did a great job putting together all of our courses within to our career cluster, our career pathways, and so that last QR code, if you scan that, it's going to bring you to a lot of this information. This is just an example of Willowbrook's career clusters. Ours, Addison Trails, is on there as well, and give you an idea of what career, if they have an idea of what career cluster they want to go into, a career pathway. This will tell you what kind of courses that would be good to take. And this is something that we talked with the students about. We talked about career clusters with them, understanding what career clusters, career, and the difference between the clusters and the pathways. A lot of verbiage out there, and knowing, again, the big thing is continue to explore and think about what they may want to do after they leave us. Our big push this year has been what's your E? And obviously we kind of went through that through this presentation. We talked about the 2 or 4 year schools, enrolling in one of those. We talked about enlisting in the military, and then we also talked about employment, getting a career-oriented job. So we've asked students to tell us what their E is, and we've been using, again, this language throughout the year with students and having them think about this, again, throughout their years, even from start when they came in the doors as freshmen, and then, working with students through activities in ATR. And we talked a little bit about these programs already. The one I didn't bring up was the Heritage Spanish Career Fluency course. That is kind of our highest level of a Spanish class where students are working in the community with a business and helping them translate. And so obviously they've taken some AP level Spanish classes, and they're getting the skills to understand how to translate. It's a great opportunity, as I mentioned, uh, being able to speak 2 languages can go very far in your professional career. We've talked about to students about that, and then having those skills to be able to use those, is the next step. And that's what this class does for that, and a great opportunity there. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm sure we might have some questions. Did we get most of them answered?
I think so.
Okay. Other questions that you may have.
I do have a question. For the criminal justice program at TCD, what does that entail? Or what do they do when they go over there?
Yeah, they're learning kind of techniques. So the big thing to know about the teachers at TCD are they're professionals that worked in the fields. Um, so they have a little bit different certification. They're not necessarily certified teachers. They have a certification, but they come from the industry. Um, so you're learning really to become a police officer or work in the law enforcement, investigations, I at one point they had former FBI employees, teaching the class. Usually it's a former policeman. So you're working those, understanding components of the criminal justice and, getting the basics around going into the law enforcement. My suggestion for anybody that's interested in the TCD programs is they do have open houses. Their big one is in January. So the good news is nobody, freshmen and sophomores can't enroll. So next year, if you're a sophomore, even if you're a freshman, uh, we'll send out information about their open house. It's in mid-January usually. They do one in the fall sometimes as well, but definitely we highly suggest getting over there and get an understanding because it is a little different than what you're used to at Essen Trail. The nice thing is you get to meet students from all these different schools, DuPage County schools that do come there, within your class. But it's a different atmosphere than maybe Essen Trail because it's more hands-on programming and we want to make sure students, you know, have a feeling of what they're getting into when they go over there, particularly because we do pay an tuition to send students there. So we want to make sure that they feel good about having that in their schedule.
And for juniors, that so my daughter's gonna be a junior next year. When do what would they start looking at that? This year?
For He's going to be a junior next year.
Yes.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we course selection is over for this year, but he could particularly look for a senior year um, for that. So yes,
Okay.
we've, definitely we talked to students about that, that having that opportunity, particularly starting in December, about being able to go over there. But yeah, at this time we've kind of closed up course selection and kind of getting ready, getting the students that are already enrolled and they're all set up.
I have a question about non-merit scholarships. Do you have, do you have help guidance besides just like standard Google searches on the parents or
Yeah,
like
so
direction on how to begin that?
FastWeb is a good source. We have our own Google Classroom for senior um, scholarships. Most of our local scholarships um, are for seniors only. So when it comes
Mhm.
time in the fall, we invite all the seniors to join that. Um, I will tell you that we have struggled sometimes getting in enough students to apply, but the ones that do have a good opportunity to win those um, non-merit scholarships. Um,
Mhm.
I would also suggest like looking at see if your employer offers one. You know, your local organizations, that you're involved in. See if they offer scholarships. Anywhere you can look, any little bit can help with those. I would say national ones are a little bit more difficult, right? Because you're
Mhm.
competing against so many different people. But I will tell you that the ones that we advertise, the local ones, can add up for some students.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have one more question. So I'll just give you guys an example. So I have two kids at AT, one's a freshman, one's a sophomore. When applying for financial aid, specifically for the FAFSA,
Mhm.
is the application, well, not the approval process, let's put it that way, is that going to be, let's say if I applied for my son, when he becomes a junior, um, will what let's say the government aid that I receive for one child be bigger than for the child that I apply for the following year? Is that in any way affected when you have multiple kids trying to go to college and you need to apply for financial aid?
Uh, it's factored in, um, into the process. So you won't apply to their seniors for FAFSA. That'll be the first time you do that. But if you have one in college, it could affect your aid. Yes, definitely. Taking that understanding that there's another, I don't want to say burden, but there's another amount of money that you're spending, and in terms of who gets what, that's hard to say. And
Mm,
there's all these different factors that they come into play, and they ask for they have been asking for a few more finance items from families too. And again, the formula for that, unfortunately, I don't know, but
sure.
particularly having two in school could impact your need.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? If you do have questions, certainly you can follow up with me. Mr. Cole always, I know he's not here, so but he always says you can certainly reach out to him. He has a wealth of knowledge. His two daughters, um, one of which graduated last year from Hope, and he has another one that's a junior there now. He has a wealth of knowledge within this particularly 2 or 4 year college years, but certainly reaching out to your own child's counselor, but always can reach out to me or Miss Cole if you have other questions. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
everybody for coming tonight.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.